Did you know the fight over a new White House ballroom has reached the Supreme Court? And the stakes go far beyond one construction project. What began as a plan for a $400 million expansion has turned into a test of presidential power, congressional control, historic preservation, and how far a president can go when the law, the courts, and the architecture all collide. At the center of the dispute is a simple but explosive question. Can the White House keep building while the case is still being decided? Or must the project stop until the legal dust settles? Watchdogs say this is not just about marble, steel, and chandeliers. It is about whether the executive branch can move ahead with a major change to one of the most important buildings in the country without the kind of approval and review that usually comes with public works of this scale. The White House is not a private estate. It is a federal landmark, a working office, a residence, and a symbol protected by layers of law and tradition. That is why critics argue the project should face strict oversight, full transparency, and careful limits before a single new wall goes up. One side of the debate says the ballroom is a long overdue upgrade, a practical improvement that will help the White House host large state events without relying on temporary structures or awkward workarounds. The administration has also pointed to private funding claims, arguing that donors and outside supporters, not taxpayers, would cover the cost. That claim matters because it is being used to answer the most obvious political criticism. If the public is not paying, why should the public object? The answer from opponents is immediate. Private money does not erase public power. If the project changes a national landmark, uses federal authority, or affects the historic integrity of the complex, they say the law still matters. Another major issue is preservation. The White House is one of the most scrutinized buildings in the world, and any major construction nearby can trigger review under historic preservation rules. Those rules exist because once a landmark is altered, it cannot simply be restored to what it was before. Supporters of the halt say the appeals court was right to pause the project because the legal questions were too serious to ignore while the case continued. In their view, letting construction move forward would risk creating irreversible damage before the courts have finished deciding whether the project was properly approved in the first place. Administration officials, however, argue that the White House has always adapted to changing needs and that modern security, event capacity, and operational demands justify the expansion. They say large official gatherings require space and that a purpose-built ballroom would improve logistics and reduce repeated temporary construction. They also frame the issue as one of presidential authority, insisting the president must have room to manage the executive residence and support the functioning of the office. To them, the appeals court order is an unnecessary interruption that blocks a legitimate improvement before its legal status is fully resolved. But critics see a different story. They worry about the message it sends if a president can press ahead with a massive alteration to the White House while lawsuits are still active. They ask whether private funding can be used as a shield to bypass public scrutiny and whether national security arguments are being stretched to defend a project that looks, to them, more like prestige than protection. Once the government begins calling a construction project a security matter, the legal standards can become harder to challenge. That is why opponents are pressing so hard on the details: who approved it, who funded it, what reviews were done, and whether the public ever got a real chance to weigh in. The legal stakes are enormous. If the Supreme Court lets the project continue during appeal, the administration gains a major procedural win and a powerful signal that it can keep moving while the fight continues. If the court backs the halt, the project could freeze for months or longer, and the ruling may strengthen the idea that even a president cannot outrun judicial review when a landmark and public law questions are involved. Either way, the court is being asked to answer more than a construction dispute. It is being asked to define the boundaries of executive power at one of the most visible addresses in America. What to watch next is not just whether the justices act, but how they justify it. Do they treat the ballroom as an ordinary building matter or as something uniquely tied to the presidency and national security? Do they accept the argument that private funding changes the legal calculus? Or do they say public institutions cannot be reshaped through private channels without full oversight? And perhaps most importantly, do they allow the project to move forward while the appeal is pending, knowing that once construction begins, the facts on the ground may be impossible to undo? This is why the case has captured so much attention. It is about more than a ballroom. It is about who gets to decide what happens to the White House, how much power a president really has, and whether legal checks can still slow the most powerful office in the country. If the Supreme Court opens the door to continued construction now, it may do more than settle one dispute. It may redraw the limits of presidential authority for years to come.